Jason Fitz, when you watch the Eagles game Sunday night, were you appalled? Did you not care? Did you say, this is sports today? What kind of impression did that have on you?
Well, not appalled at all. And look, I mean, I can't tell you how many. It's been a while. Like, my beloved Raiders are rarely in the playoff conversation. But I can remember a couple of times in my life where I sat there in Week 17 thinking, oh, God, I hope such and such team hasn't already clinched because I really need them to beat this team, and they're going to set all their starters if they have, right? Like, we've gotten used to Week 17 sitting as starters for teams to get ready for the playoffs, which impacts other teams. So an organization deciding to do what's best for an organization, I have zero problem with. What stunned me about it, there were two things that I thought were stunning. One, Doug Peterson has got a lot of confidence in his job security to know that that's where he's at, that none of it matters. It's what's happening on the field. And I thought after the year they had that there might be more conversations. I don't believe that you go in and you put that look out if you don't feel pretty darn confident you're going to be the coach the next year. But the other part of it is there's this like weird section for me because let's be real. They're picking 6 now. Now, we all agree that Jalen Hurts is who they want to take a look at. But I don't know if anybody's looked at these mock draft boards, but there's a real possibility that even a Justin Fields or a Zach Wilson, one of the top quarterbacks in the draft, are going to be available at 6. So the Eagles are going to have a decision to make. Why you don't, in that situation, want to see your young quarterback you're trying to figure out if he can be the future against a really good defensive line, a really well-coached defense in a division game. Like, that was the stunning part to me. I wanted to get the evaluation of Jalen Hurts. It doesn't really matter about the win or the loss. Just see what Hurts can do in that situation, because I don't think anybody right now can look at Hurts and say that he's put enough on tape to know that he's absolutely the guy if there's another quarterback that they fall in love with that's there at the draft.
Yeah, there's definitely a quarterback conundrum that they have to figure out. Is it Wentz? Is it Hurts? Do they draft a guy? Let me ask you, though. This league is desperate for quarterbacks. Everyone will take a swing. Do teams, in your mind, value Wentz after what they just saw? Because he was a second-round pick. He looked like he was going to be a great player. Everybody always says, get me my hands on him and I can fix him. Did he look like a guy who's fixable or a shot fighter?
Yeah, he is definitely going to be. Somebody will take a swing on him because, A, coaches have massive egos, right? So they believe they can fix anybody. B, he's shown you good. And the one thing about coaches in general, in my experience so far, is that when they see good, they believe that they can replicate that. The good outweighs the bad, right? So, it's the same reason I'll go back to my Raiders fandom. It's the same reason that Derek Carr would have value on the open market, because you've seen Derek Carr have an MVP caliber season. We've seen what Carson Wentz looks like when he's good. So every coach is going to believe that they can take a look at that and find the right plays. So, does Carson Wentz still have value? Yes. Is that contract a hindrance? Heck yeah. Is the team going to try and put themselves in a situation where they could get him without having to take on that contract? Well, that would be good business, but that's easier said than done. So he does absolutely, in my mind, have value. And I know everybody keeps speculating, Frank Reich and the Colts, but that's not a bad idea. The Colts have a ton of salary cap space. So why not spend it on a quarterback you've seen do something great when you're going to be picking so late in the draft that it's not like another guy's going to come to you and you know that Phillip Rivers is the long-term answer. So somebody will take a flyer on Carson Wentz this fall, and I don't believe there's a shot. Look, the minute that Doug Peterson sat in for Jalen Hurts, what he told the entire locker room is, you know what? It's not a player. It's not a coaching problem. It's a player problem. So to me, the relationship was over right then. So I'd be stunned to see Carson Wentz back, and somebody will take a flyer on him. The question is, how do they get that done, and what has to be done with the contract?
Do you think that that's the right decision, though? If you look at it, if you had two scenarios laid out in front of you, would you keep Carson Wentz and move on from Doug Peterson? Even though we do think that Doug Peterson is safe, it does seem pretty clear. But do you think keeping Doug and moving on from Carson is the right decision from an ownership standpoint, or do you think they should go the other direction? Maybe get rid of Doug, get in a new coach? Because I think Philadelphia might be the issue more so than the coach. I think at this point, Nick Foles, now this backup quarterback, and it happened the year after the Super Bowl as well. I think it's more than just the coach with Carson. It might be the headlines, the media, and everything surrounding Philly. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, if I have to make a choice between Doug Peterson or Carson Wentz, I take Carson Wentz all day. Because realistically, I think what everybody forgets is how hard it is to find a decent quarterback. Not a great quarterback. How hard it is to find a decent quarterback. Half the league comes into this recycled moment every single year. They're going to get their guy and they don't, right? Like, so when you've seen a quarterback, like coaches are replaceable. There's only a handful of coaches in the NFL that are so head and tails above everybody else that they are the guy that you absolutely can't walk away from. There's a handful of them. The rest of them are virtually replaceable. So to me, if I've seen greatness from a quarterback, that's the thing that I'm going to bank on. I'm going to find a guy that can get that back. And you're right. I think Philadelphia is part of the problem. But that means you need a coach that's going to come in and absolutely insulate Carson Wentz. How do you get somebody back on the right side when it comes to confidence when they've lost it all? I think part of that comes from just an absolute sense of connection and belief in the building. And, frankly, it doesn't matter what anybody outside that building says. Carson Wentz believes that when he walks into that room, he feels like a rock star. That's gone away. That isn't there. That if I have to make the choice, I'm Doug Peterson's gone all day long, and I go out and I get myself a coach that can come in and really bring Carson Wentz back on the right path. It's easier to find another coach.
Jason Fitz, Spain and Fitz airs 7 to 9 on 97.3 ESPN. There was a report that players were shocked and outraged on the decision to bench Jalen Hurts. Now, today, Jason Kelce came out and kind of said that's not really the case. Like, there were some reports that they wanted to fight Peterson. He said, no, I don't know where. But is this a fixable, like, forget the Wentz thing. If this is happening and you're looking at that, is Peterson a guy that you have to move on from anyway because of what happened in that game?
If I could give a gold medal for the best take of the year in 2021, you just won it, because I think that's the most under-talked about part of what we saw over the weekend. How can a coach next season stand in front of a player that, might be in the last year of his contract, that's dipped up, that's hurt, and say, hey, give me your all. I will give you my all if you give me your all, because we've already seen the answer to that. I mean, we've seen Doug Peterson turn around and say that the future of the organization matters more than winning any game, while he's got starters out there that are at risk, while he's got big-name players out there that every single snap are putting themselves at risk. If I'm a player, I just learned where Doug Peterson stands on this, and there is nothing he can say that will outweigh that memory in the back of my mind. Like, actions speak louder than words. We all know that. And trust in a locker room is something that is not fixed easily, whether it's trust between player and coach or vice versa. Once it's damaged, it takes a lot to get that back. And that's why we see players at times that are just given up on because they violated that trust. Look at Dwayne Haskins, right? Like the Washington football team gives up on him because of all of these different things. But most importantly, they could no longer trust him, right? So if I'm a player and I'm standing in that locker room, how do I believe a damn thing that Doug Peterson tells me when it comes to commitment to winning, when it comes to laying it on the line, when it comes to playing every single Sunday like it's your last Sunday? All of those cheesy coaching cliches that are used to get guys fired up, they all fall on deaf ears at this point, because you've seen what he really cares about, which is figuring out what next year is going to bring when guys are still out there putting themselves at risk. If he was going to do that, he should have pulled all of his starters and made a blanket statement across the board.
Considering the Eagles aren't used to drafting at 6, if you do get rid of Wentz, would you consider going after Justin Fields, taking advantage of that draft spot that you're not used to being in, knowing that, well, when they drafted Jalen Hurts, they told us we value the backup quarterback? But not saying he would be the backup quarterback, but I'm just saying if you're willing to go into camp next year with Wentz and Hurts battling it out, what's the difference from Justin Fields and Jalen Hurts battling it out?
Yeah, if I'm Jalen Hurts, I don't feel set about anything. And guys, I work a lot in the college football space, and we were doing a show a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not kidding. We spent the entire hour prep with me listening to Tom Luganville and E.J. Manuel just wax over and over and over again about the greatness of Zach Wilson out of BYU, right? So I don't even think it's just Justin Fields. By the time that we get to draft, there are going to be 3 quarterbacks in Lawrence, Fields, and Wilson that are all going to be top 8 picks. So they're going to be sitting right in the thick of that opportunity. And I think the hype train on Wilson is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So, I'm looking at a kid there that I think people are going to be salivating over. So if I'm Philly and there's even the slightest inkling of a doubt, what have we seen now? Like, we've seen the Kyler Murray thing was the beginning of a new era in the NFL, where it doesn't really matter if a new regime comes in, especially. But if you're looking at reinvention, why not try and get yourself a quarterback? If you have any doubt from Jalen Hurts, get yourself a new opportunity with somebody that you'll have 5 years to make a decision on.
Here's the one problem I have. Do I want to set the same precedent to Hurts that I just did to Wentz to piss him off? Like, why are you drafting a quarterback in the second round? Do you not have faith in me? Like, I think Hurts would handle it better than Wentz did, but why do I even want to go down that road and take a quarterback and tell Hurts, we might not have confidence in you either?
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, I think that's the risk to take in that situation for Jalen, but ultimately, do you care anymore? I mean, it doesn't seem like the way they're running things, they really care what the players feel. So if they're going to be, let's say, analytic driven in the way they do everything, you pick and choose when you're taking guys' feelings into account. I mean, I don't disagree with you that if I'm Jalen Hurts, I'm checked out. If they draft another quarterback, I'm probably asking somehow, some way to get traded, right? But, if I'm Philly, do I care? I mean, you saw what they did with Carson Wentz. And look, I think everybody shares responsibility in this. The front office gave Wentz that contract. Wentz didn't play up to that contract. And Doug Peterson never seemed to find the want or need to call the plays that would just put him into rhythm. I think they all share blame on what happened with Carson Wentz. But now that they've done that, I mean, do you just at some point you just cut it off and say, all right, we're going to rebuild? I mean, there are going to be some great wide receivers in this draft. And I know that Philly loves the concept of getting game-changing players on the outside. But I'm not sure you can't do that later in the first round or you can't do it at the top of the second round. So if a quarterback's sitting there, is it too tempting to pass up?
Jason Fitz is the co-host of Spain and Fitz on 97.3 ESPN. It airs 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock right here on 97.3 ESPN. And I'm sure, look, this story, I mean, Carson Wentz, the number 2 pick, was going to be an MVP, the Foles thing. He comes back, he leads. This has got to be the most intriguing offseason story that we've had in the NFL in some time. Like what? I guess Brady last year, being the free agent for the first time was something, but you had the whole COVID situation, so that kind of got lost in the sauce a bit. This is going to be wild.
Yeah, well, I think for 2 quarterback situations that both impact Philly that are going to be the most interesting stories of the offseason, because not a lot of people are talking about the fact that the Cowboys now have to make a very serious decision with Dak. And did everything go in such a way that they have to give him a long-term deal? Is he more likely to take a long-term deal, or are they going to franchise him again and somebody's going to turn around and give up the 2 first-rounders they'd have to give to trade for Dak Prescott? Like, I don't think the Dak situation is settled either. So the Cowboys it's so strange. Coming into this season, we never would have thought we'd be saying right now that the Giants and the Washington football team feel like they've figured out their direction for the future for right now. And Philly and Dallas are both spinning right now, trying to figure out what the heck to do at quarterback in a very, very bad way. You're right, though. That is the most interesting part of this offseason, especially leading up to the draft, because these decisions are going to have to be made before we get to Cleveland for the draft.
All right, Jason Fitz, he joins us Wednesdays here on the Sports Bash, and, of course, always high energy, a lot of fun during Spain and Fitz, 7 to 9 here on 97.3 ESPN. Jay Fitz, take care, pal.
Man, I always appreciate you guys having me on. Happy New Year, gentlemen.